Soft wind curling dust. Cars and trucks lend rhythm to a Pacoima viaduct dance. With plastic bags, fast food cartons, leaves, and scrap paper trapped in a Milky Way on the ground.
Mhm.
Under the roadway, as tires and engines growl above, a houseless man among an enclave of weather tents sits on a bucket, his arms splayed over a splintered plywood board on a makeshift desk of boxes. He draws. Next to him, an illustrated book of birds, dirt crusted into cracks of spine and cover. Using a pencil, the man carefully incisions the lines, methodically shades in a spectrum of black to gray on his torn sketchbook page, his most valued asset in a place of no assets, except for what sings in his bones. He draws, and the city breathes with him. No smog, no industry, no rumbling soundtracks from above. The birds, the air, the land, the sun, the trees, the earth. On the blank paper, the man designs another landscape with no poisons, with new roads that curve toward new homes. He draws birds, yet I witness in his hand what launches new spaces, new parks, new abodes, where everyone belongs, where nobody has to stake a claim because all are claimed, where no one is blocked from flowering, so birthings appear all the time, everywhere, every day, every hour, every click of a clock's second's hand. The drawn birds polished from grime to gold. How the more you excavate, the finer things become. How the lines fly, fly, fly in a vortex of dust and cartons.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Mm. Since we're so intimate, I'll just read a title or two. I usually don't, but this particular one is called Local Music. It fits somewhat with what I'm hearing. And I wrote this years ago, but I rededicated it to my late brother and writer, Greg Tate, who passed away. And Greg and I went to college together, but he was so good so early in his life. He went up to New York, and we used to read his stuff at the Village Voice like it was Grail. Um, Local music. Drawbridge engineered of Mahalia's choppy hand claps. Arch forged by memory of my baby daughter. A stole around morning. Grate of colored glass, quarried from marbles, knocked out a dirt circle. World's fate depends on tools we make from silence in Roberta and Donny Hathaway duets. We're all local music, goosebumps sizzling through circuit board powered by Little Richard's turbine, breath riding piggyback on rim shadow of sacred thought. We find melody in our lives, accenting our solos with a mouthful of family, home cooked potato salad, first loves, tales with sad endings we could not peep, bitter taste of blames, moan of curses, putting shards in a voice. Can I take it to the bridge? Once over dinner at the House of Blues, my lover accused me of being triumphant. It hurt like a vision of my dead mother, frozen with a guitar under her arms, paralyzed me in a room set afire by sharp-toothed duppies. Knew we should go our separate ways, but meals hadn't come, and Roberta was set to take the stage within 2 hours. At concert time, stage was revealed when restaurant floor opened like a drawbridge engineered of Mahalia's choppy hand claps. Goodbye echoed in every one of Rose's lyrics. Thank God I grew up where bridges are named after Frederick Douglass and Duke Ellington. Thank God for local music, conceived in rim shadow of sacred thought. Incline even frustrated lover toward triumph. Hope in her search for beauty in human relationships, accenting her solos with a mouthful of family, feel of loving hands oiling her scalp, braiding uneven plaits, press of her shoulders into welcome legs, bitter fumes of burning hair wished out of open windows, soothing taste of bathwater moments in a voice. Can I take it to the bridge? Can I praise what's flowering? Speak with smell of victory on my breath. Stand with synergy of neighborhood by my friends. Walk like I have manufactured tools from silence. Engineered my bridges with flamboyance of a maestro conducting transcendent orchestra of an ex-slave shredding 4th of July in erudite oration, exploding across the sky.
Mm-mm.
Man, that's great.
Mm,
We got to savor that one.
mm,
Oh my God, that's beautiful.
mm,
Um, as some of you people know, I spent 15 years in Chicago, and it was a great experience. I learned a lot, but I did a lot of work there that actually helped me when I came back to LA to set up Tia Chucha's, get Tia Chucha Press going strong, and create the Culture Center bookstore. Chicago at the time was losing a lot of industry, just like LA. And I know because I worked in that industry in LA, and I was there. But Chicago did something um, quite amazing. Um, it developed a really arts explosion,
mm,
and a lot of it was from the ground up. And one of those things was the slam poetry scene, which came out of Chicago. And I happened to fall in there when it was really big and happening. I also got involved going to the homeless shelters because there's big, huge shelters in Chicago for homeless people. They're
mm,
not that way here, even though I know that there's some. It's not like it is over there. And I would go in there and teach poetry, but also hear poetry and publish some of the poetry work. And I work with gang kids, and I would go to prisons and juvenile halls. It got me really involved. So I just want to read a Chicago poem. I'm reading poems that you normally don't read. So this is one I don't think I've ever read. If I have,
okay.
I don't think so. But it's just a simple one. I would get on the L train, and the L train is their subway system. We call it the L train because you're actually up on
Mhm,
top of, and we're I would get on there and just ride those trains, just to ride them. You know what I'm saying? Going nowhere, going
mhm,
everywhere. And I actually did it in the LA subway system. I like it. I like LA subway system, but of course, the ones back east are just so much majestic and huge and old. So this one's called Reflection on L Train Glass. Gaze penetrates through the glass of L train window. It infringes, it infiltrates,
mm,
a misdemeanor against silence.
yeah,
I turn toward it, the face in the haze refracting glare in myriad directions, slicing into working woman's tiredness, into child's affront, into uniformed man's weariness, into the uninterested below city's still life. A vice of sun rays grips a shape, an innuendo of myself, a caress of shade on the cheek. I'm recalling the places I've been, like flesh below the waters of a bath, and I sleep into this transparent world, sleep into a sort of flying, into molds of day, into cinders in the field which doesn't feel, into a stupor deeper than reflection.
mhm, mhm. Okay, man. Okay, okay. You got me now. Lopsided boy, arms brushing knobby knees on sacred toothpicks, jagged hairline shielding chip tooth grin. He dives into a pool. Tide swells in my direction. He is axe hacking water, his wake wood chips fleeing the blade. We sit, breathing on pool's edge. What's my name? My job? Why you swimming alone laps at the boys' club? Craving inundation of my own son's interrogations before his voice fades into court ordered fine print. Where is this boy's daddy or mommy? I am brooding Olympian, exhaling annoyance. His barbed wire smile draws blood from my solitude. He bends over water. You want to see me make rain? He cups his hands beneath sloshing surface, flings a shimmering glob above our heads. Fluorescent light spliced by chlorinated crystal ball, mood indigo diluted into distant thunder. April shower splashes wet notes of balafone against rippling aquamarine. He giggles, delighted he could play God. Bless me with his joy.
Wow. Whoa. So you're buying a boy. I think I'm going to bring in boys. I'm going to bring in my two sons, two
Yeah.
youngest sons.
Come on.
So this poem I have read a lot, but I love this poem because of them. So it's called Moonlight to Water, and it's to my youngest sons, Ruben and Luis. And you know they're the sons I have with my current wife, Trini. Ruben recalled the day I brought Mama and his baby brother home when he was 6. In the back seat of the car, he said, was an Asian looking child, hair sticking straight up on his head. Chito, short for Luisito, looked this way because he's part Raramuri and Huichol, but mostly our universe. Ruben must have wondered about the galaxy of stars, bird songs, and stories that had been dreamt to fashion such a boy. When Chito arrived, I'm sure Ruben knew his world would never be the same. Until then, Ruben had been our only child. To mom and dad, he was the screech of car brakes, a side to a bad joke, the glove to our ball, and now this, a bewildered boy gazing at a sweet faced earth child wrapped in a light blue blanket.
Mm.
I asked Ruben what he thought about his brother. Eyes gleaming with a 6-year-old's clarity, he answered, oh, I already knew him.
Mm.
I saw Chito when I was in Mama's stomach.
Wow.
I gave Ruben a look I often offered in reply to his amazing observations. Somehow, though, the statement rang true. His younger brother was in the wings, preparing to part, the next one patiently abiding his turn. As they grew older, Chito followed his brother's every move, entering wide eyed into Ruben's dense sphere, sharing the same music, games, imaginings. Ruben never hurt or exploited him, as older brothers often do. The boys connected from the start, brothers since the womb, like hummingbird to flower, like breath to poems, like moonlight to water.
Yeah. 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 Put down your gun. Pick up your baby. Undo your collar. Open up your arms. Strip off your uniform. Salute to your equal. Unpin your badge. Reveal your rib cage. Dismount your tomahawk. Home train your tongue. Swallow your mushroom cloud. Civilize your crosshairs. Put down your gun. Pick up your baby. Those of us without guns win. Do we get to dance to Fela Kuti's consecrated drone? Do we get to listen to Jali's incantations of all that is known? When will we bear what comes with peace? How do we make the earth turn faster? I put down my gun. My collar is open at the throat. My uniform is a pile of cloth at my feet. My badge has been spun into piano wire. My Sam and Dave tongue bleeds the music of earth, wind, and fire. Through the crosshairs of civilization, I read the stones of a kaleidoscope. When something is wrong with our babies, something is wrong with me.
Woo! I want to make that my campaign slogan. The last part.
You got it. You got it.
Man, that's beautiful. So
Yeah.
it made me think about a lot of poems, Peter. But I'm gonna just read one that is called "Perhaps."
Mhm.
Perhaps when the stories are lost and pleasure is a dry river,
Mm.
and what makes the flesh sing is a long gone supplication, we may find our true names. Perhaps when the Earth's rotation stops, when the moon has wilted and the sun's rays scorch down the squandered ground, we may uncover our inner eye. Perhaps when the poisons that once were our sustenance and the radiation that once gave us light now foster our insatiable hungers and in abiding darkness, we may know what really feeds and guides us. Perhaps after we've created so many borders, so many walls, and conjured up even more laws to make even more lawless, we may realize it's ourselves who've been made illegal. It's our spirits we've alienized. Perhaps when parents lose their final grasp on their children, they will finally grasp that their sole purpose is to bring loved, healthy, and understood children into this world to remake the universe better and more holy each time. Perhaps when the wars and the names of countless gods, which look and act like those who invoke them, finally end, we may realize that God is the unnameable, unobtrusive wind that caresses our cheeks, the rain that falls on us all, the air that enters our lungs, and the nerves in our brains so we can name whatever God we want. Perhaps when all the textbooks and written histories and science papers cease, we'll understand that nature and our own natures are the source of all knowledge, language, histories, and we'll always be able to rewrite them, reimagine them, and reweave them into the world. Perhaps when love has become the embers of what we hate, the residue of what we've destroyed, we'll know that love is the stream that flows through each and every one of us, the water we thirst for, and the deserts of our days, the ocean from which all our tears, full of salt and unmet desires, surge and flow.
Mm, mm, mm. This season, life, life, this need, life, life, this season, this need, this crying season, this laughing need, this Peter, this man, this fool, need this season, need this need this life, need this foolishness. When he cry, human. When he laugh, human. Morning out the pores, night between the hands. 30-year-old vinyl echoes circulate his blood. Daily stamina of beauty recreates sound beyond instinct. This moment, poised with paradox in the back pocket of his humanity. Years of gratitude dancing in the near sight eyes. Need this season, need this life, need this foolishness.
I have to let that sit in, man.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to rush into the next
No
poem.
question,
Sorry.
brother. You just keep breathing. You got me fired up too.
Good. That's powerful. You know, me and Peter have done this before, and it always we don't rehearse. We just
Yeah,
intersect in ways that are just powerful.
yeah.
And so I'm going to read you a poem. I've read this before. It's a very well, all my poems are personal in some way, but this one is particularly hard because it
Mm,
was the last days of my drinking. People know I was on heroin and other drugs for 7 years. By the time I met Peter, I was all pretty much done with it, but I drank a
mhm.
lot,
Yeah,
and I
yeah.
could hold a lot of drink. That's the problem with
Mhm.
me. You never see me falling out
That's
stupid
right.
drunk, which I don't want to make fun of that because
That's right.
that's not cool. But I could hold a lot of drink, which is not good either, because I would black out and walk around like if nothing was going on, and I didn't even remember what I was doing.
Mm,
So at the very end there, I've been sober for 28 years now, but at the very end, I was dealing with a new baby that my wife Trini had. I was dealing with my teenage son from my previous first marriage, and he was in trouble. He was in bad shape, angry. You know how they were. I didn't raise him. He came to me
mm,
as a teenager. He's driving me crazy, and my poor wife Trini was losing me in the bars. You know how that goes. So one day, she decides to go to a bar with me. She never would join me. She's not really a big drinker. She drinks wine even now, and I don't drink nothing, but she never was. So she came to join me, and it was quite terrible experience because she saw how a mutated man I could become,
mm,
how I could be this. I love the bars. I love to drink with all the noise and the smoke and the dancing and all. I just love being around all these people that really that was part of the addiction. Just being drinking in with all these people. I'm generally an introvert. I
mm,
know it's hard to imagine, but I generally am. But when I'm
mhm,
drinking, I'm an extrovert. Some weird things
mhm,
happen. And so she saw me there and I forgot that she was there and I started flirting with other women, the whole thing,
mhm.
whatever mutated men do. And
Wow.
and
Mutated
I
man.
didn't even pay attention. So Jeannie did the most amazing thing that I told her, I hope no woman should ever have to do, and I hope you never have to do. She could have walked out. She could have thrown something at me. She could have found some other guy if she wanted. She could have done all kinds of things. She got up on the bar and started dancing, angry, so angry,
Wow.
and everybody stopped and looked, but it stopped me cold. I could swear I stood up. Something happened. I looked at
Mhm,
that, and everything focused on her dance.
mhm, mhm. Yeah, man.
That's to me the bottom, because people get to the bottom and then happens. But you got to
Yeah.
have some grace in it,
Mhm.
and that was my moment.
Incredible.
So here's
Good time, man. That's
here's
beautiful,
my
man.
poem to Trini and her dance, and it goes like this: There's a dance that is like running, a sprint inside a glance,
Wow.
a dance that belongs to Latrini. The
Mhm.
body swivels through space and emotions, through dread and sweet hugs, through next morning doubts and wild lips on skin.
Mhm.
This dance is surrender, a bitter douse of memory, also honey shimmering across a night sky. There is a dance called Latrini, perfect
Wow.
steps in an imperfect world.
Mhm.
She dances, and the world is clay in her hands.
Yes.
She dances, and the limbs and the limbs become liberated and agile. She dances, and it's a flight to the mystery of hugs infused by the particular solace of being held and a strange shame and not knowing how to let go. There is a dance known only to Latrini, a secret song in the folds of the battered self, how in time it becomes nuanced with measured moments, surprising even the dancer. Some days the dance is a wayward waltz, an unmannered minuet, yet still a surd glide into the arms of a partner in rhyme, a partner synchronized, whose unsure footing and missteps finally plummet into line with this love, this woman, this dance named Trini.
Mm-mm-mm. That's grown work, bro. That's grown folks. Man.
We've been together 38 years this year. 30, I think we're going on 34 years married. Anyway.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. See, you got me thinking about that kind of deep movement.
Mm.
Twilight already promises a night that would be a night when all the holy statues could wipe the tears from their eyes, when all the hopeful lovers could hear a serenade of prayers just from the watercolor evening breeze. Then on the dying spin of one long day floats an oldie by Billy Stewart. The harmony of a new dimension reveals the promise that Twilight made. Just from the breezy watercolor dripping music from the rippling horizon, I do love you. Yes, I do. And it becomes a night. All the dry-eyed statues tip from their sanctuaries down to this seashore and sashay across the purple seawater. Billy Stewart sings sweetly down by the seashore. Clouds step across the sky like backup singers. Full moon glows like a church soloist wearing quilted spirit. Billy Stewart sings sundown by the seashore. Lovers nod to his doo-wop serenade. Twilight died on the spindle of one long day. All the holy lovers found a home in the watery folds of robes worn by statues swishing on the waves of wishes on a night that became a night when all the world's dancers closed their eyes and swooned like newborn lovers into the twilight watercolors dripping from the rippling places where water meets tomorrow.
Mm.
Yeah, yeah.
Hey,
God,
man,
what?
I
that
have
was
to
great.
say the silence between his poems are an important part of the poetry reading.
Yeah. Hey, Peter and Luis, I want to let you know that according to the clock, you've gone 30 minutes.
Oh wow!
And
Get
I'd
out
say,
here.
you can go as long as you want,
We could,
but
but
I want to let you know that's where we're at.
what if we end with those beautiful words? I
I'm
mean, I love
down
that.
with it. That is amazing. I think
It's great. We could keep going. We could do one more if y'all want. If there's
Yeah, how about one more
okay,
each?
okay, we'll do one more. This is not quite as long. I read this before, but I've never had it published yet. I again, I hate to go back to all this craziness, but I was on heroin for 7 years growing up, and the thing I want to say about that is I hardly ever write about this. I put it in my memoirs, but I don't really have too many poems, maybe one or two poems. And I decided to do maybe one big poem about heroin, which is hard to do. You can have thousands of poems on this, and I thought one big poem. So it does have a mention of Miles Davis, because I used to listen to Bitches Brew while shooting up. It was quite an amazing high. And um, and I don't know if anybody else did that, but anyway, that was one thing I would do. And so this poem is about what heroin meant to me and what I think it means, well, to me in particular. It's called The Peace of Death in Life.
Mm.
And I'm so blessed to be so removed from that life, from that world. It almost seems like a dream that a long time ago. And again, I'm sober now 28 years, going 29 years this year. And I've been more sober now than I ever was on drugs or drinking. And so this is why the poem, I think, comes now. The Peace of Death in Life.
Mm.
Heroin's soundtrack. Bitches brew. Trumpets like trains squealing around a bend. The way rainwater murmurs along a concrete river, skulls whispering you to sleep. Pain awash and glows from the tip of the toes, through legs, streaming through the pit of a stomach, coloring the whole body in hazy blue wash. Miles knew the chords to blow. I chipped to soften the edge when things got bad. When it did, I didn't want to be around anymore. Anyone. Stash among my own edit and score, loitering inside my own high in my own morose pose. Yet Micaela and homie Sharky often joined, even a hyena or two, and strangers as raindrops fell.
Mm.
I recall the headstones of Evergreen Cemetery, where I leaned back to nod and scribble in torn pieces of papers, poems tracked with collapsed veins. I recall my small garage room with no running water or heat and feeling the peace of death cover me as a white sheet in my collapse. The shadows felt so compelling. Even when I stopped breathing and homeboys forced me up, ice and pits and growing milk injected to unsing the song. To quit, I had to accept never-ending ache. Numbness only meant demise. Now constant pain is constant reminder, a holy surrender. Life is pain, pain is life. When the pain's gone, so am I.
Mm. Mm. Wow. Yeah, man, that's I'm very fortunate. My father was an alcoholic, and at his worst, it was not at all pretty, and it really and I'm happy to say, so he passed away in 94 in January, and but in December of 94, he had been sober now for a long time. My mother had passed away 10 years earlier, and he had remarried, and I knew his second wife, wonderful woman. And we sat, though, in front of the first house in DC that my mother and father were able to buy back in 71. And it was raining. And we was just in there, and I asked him a few questions, and and he starts telling me this great story about running liquor from Virginia to New York in the old days, and how he was so drunk once that he couldn't drive, but my mother sat on his lap steering the car while he pressed the accelerator. Now, I don't even know if it was true, to be honest, but it's true to me. Anyway, I think in the spirit of what you're sharing, this is last poem. It's called Water on It. Put some water on it. Hip scripture. Say so for the tests in my life. Moral told in the sacred book for haunted lovers. Put some water on it. Riff, worship, taproot for the rest of my life. Gospel from throats fed up with constriction. Ache on it. Tremble on it. Trust on it. Swallow on it. Surrender on it. Put some water on it. gauze on it, massage on it, listen on it, muse on it, incense on it, put some water on it, quilt walls of the marketplace with adinkra cloth so a panhandler can interrupt without tiptoeing and adopt the satin stance of somebody rediscovered the corn of life. Put some water on it. Giddy up, love. Let a new season's sting purify the tears of life. Glide on it. Swear on it. Sail on it. Roll on it. Celebrate on it. Detonate a pot full of kale bubbling with the code of life. Mainline dessert to human beings starved between the teeth of life. Put some water on it. Seep into a country's DNA. Remember on it. Hunger on it. Breathe on it. Vow on it. Stand on it. Put some water on it.
Mm,
Put some water on it.
mm.
Yeah. Yeah, what a joy, man, to share this with
Thank both of you, man. Thank the
you. Yeah.
audience.
Thank you all.
Why don't we all
Lot of
unmute
respect
and
for you, Peter.
clap?
Thank you, brother. Same to you, man.
Yeah, this was just a great afternoon. Does anybody have any questions they want to shout out, or do you guys want to add anything to this day?
Just a shout out to
Hey, David.
hey, how you doing, man? That
Oh,
was
great. How
wonderful.
are you?
Fantastic. Great to see you. Great to hear Luis
Yeah.
read, and just a lot of love to everybody there. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
baby.
Yeah.
Doug back there? Is that Doug?
That's Doug back there. He's
Hey,
hot,
Doug.
but he's there.
Hey, buddy.
Yeah.
Oh, that's
Great.
great,
We can
y'all.
add one
Thank
to the
you.
count.
As a question, are there any poets or books that either of you consider necessary reading?
Mhm.
Well, I have to say I'm very partial to the Spanish language poets, and I'm really glad that Peter got the Spanish translation, which is like one of his last books. He's
Yeah.
getting out. Of course, Neruda, my favorite
Mhm.
poet, and everybody will say, "Well, that sounds about right," but you have to read him in Spanish.
Mm.
He's amazing in English. Actually, the translations. I know Robert Bly translated a lot of other people did. Elliot Weinberger, there's a few other ones, but when you read in Spanish, it's a whole different universe,
Mhm.
you know. And I was in Spain, and I was part of this Miguel de Unamuno poetry reading. Miguel de Unamuno is another one of these great Spanish poets,
Mm.
and Machado. You need to read Machado. You need to read Garcia Lorca again. I know people know him and everything, but and I don't want to just emphasize them, but it just comes to mind right now.
Yeah.
These amazing Spanish poets from either Latin America or Spain, they were quite powerful, and I would just say that if you want to speak about a Cuban, a black poet, Guillin, Nicolas Guillin, any one of these poets, Spanish is a beautiful language for poetry.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what your background might be. It's just the language, the powerful beauty of language that it has. So I just want to mention that. I mean, I love all the English speaking poets, writing poets, but I just thought I'd bring in some English language.
Mhm.
And Peter?
Yeah, I like to answer it a different way. I think the wiser I get now, and there are people like Professor Ronsky and other people online who teach. But I think what's important right now is to stay curious and find the books that are essential for you.
Mhm.
I do believe in the importance of various canons, of essential books in that larger sense. I mean, you know what I mean? For far as I'm concerned, you can go to, one of the commitments I'm making the next decade is to look at the Nobel list, look at the before Columbus list, look at the various lists and just really go and do that kind of systematic homework. But I think that it's really critical right now. If you know, to me, I see this as a complementary way of doing what Luis is suggesting. I think the real important thing now is to cross all kinds of borders, and then find the work that moves you and that becomes essential to you, and then you find platforms to write about or text about or otherwise advocate for the work so that you contribute your critical analyses or your critical engagement with the work. If you want to really study and get down, you go, in my opinion, you go to school and get an MFA and all that stuff, which is important and critical. But for me right now, what I'm encouraging myself to do is to keep my ears as big as they can be. There's so much work I have never read because I'm just a student. And then sometimes when you get on a roll, you're studying other people, but you start hearing your own stuff coming, and you got to put other people down so you can make sure you're cultivating your own voice. So I would sort of define essential in different ways to answer your question.
That's lovely. Thank you so much.
Anybody else have anything to ask, say?
Well, I just want to say what a fabulous afternoon it was. It went too fast.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a good sign though, huh, Elizabeth?
Yeah.
When you look up and 30, 40 minutes had zipped by, I was like, oh, wow.
We could have kept going.
No,
Yeah.
Oh my God.
You
Yeah.
can.
No,
Thank
man,
you,
it's-
Jerry.
Well, speaking of miles, you might want to lean it. We can lean away. People call us some more and bring us together. We'll sit in the rooms or on
We'll
the
do
Zoom.
it again, and there'll be
Do
new
it
poems
Yeah.
and different poems.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well,
I think it's important
we'll do
to
it
say,
around a
Jerry.
big table and when we can get live.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I would like to say, Jerry, seriously, Luis mentioned it at the beginning. When we do this, and now I think this is the third time we might have done this. I think
Yeah.
once Pasadena, once
At the there was a library.
at library
Yeah.
in over by Crenshaw
Right.
and Washington.
Yeah.
But you said it earlier, and I think it bears repeating. I have no idea what you're going to read, and you don't have any idea what I'm going to read. And for me, I love the listening of it and the trusting of it. So, what I mean, I have some stuff, things I might to read started. Then I just listen to you, but I'm saying, oh, no, that's calling something else. And I think there's something essential to that. The wiser I get, I've been around all kinds of different kind of reading scenarios, and I think there's room for every one of them. But for my own development and my own growth, almost like as a singer, so to speak, to be able to do it like this is the most invigorating way I like to read.
Yeah.
It doesn't always work. I mean, it felt like it worked today because I just felt like we was finding themes and moments. But anyway, I just want to thank you, man. But I want to say that to people, if this was not planned at all, how we would do it. So if you find value in it, then you find value in improvisation and listening and other ways of presenting work.
But Peter, it reminded me of your radio show.
Yeah.
And it was such a pleasure that was such a pleasure to do.
Wasn't that
but
fun, huh?
it was fabulous. But the music you would choose, and you could tell that it was prompted by whatever the poem that had come before. And I mean, so symbiotic. It was so wonderful.
Yeah.
But it's like William Stanford would say, follow the thread. And that's
Follow
the way
the thread.
I do.
Nice.
There's a thread that I can see, I can feel,
Wow.
follow that thread. And it's powerful. And I think if people could learn to do that with each other more often, I think it would add to a connectiveness that we haven't seen. So I
Well, you
appreciate
have to
everything
listen.
Peter said. You have to
Yeah,
listen.
you
You have
have to
to,
listen.
another kind of art of listening,
Yeah.
the level of art of listening. Yeah.
And this is just over Zoom too, not even in a, in a room with all of us together. It was that powerful. So I
Nice.
couldn't even imagine what live would be like. It would be great to hear you do poetry jazz in person.
Yeah.
Soon come, as they say.
So, Jerry, can I add something? Can you hear me?
Yeah. Go ahead, Dig.
Yeah, I just want to thank Luis and Peter today. Beautiful stuff. I was so inspired. I love to put on my headset and walk around and do things and listen. I have a hard time just sitting there listening.
Nice.
If I'm busy, it just catches me in a way